Hey guys, I have a whole bunch of minor updates to my many unfinished projects. So instead of doing full videos on each project, I thought I would do one big update video and bring you all up to date on all of them. So first up, here's my Filco 15DX. If you recall, the main problem with this set was the cabinet damage. It had been in the basement for many years, suffered a lot of damage. I've already pretty much redone the top. Just needs a little bit of rubbing out, maybe a couple more coats of lacquer. But I have not touched the bottom yet, and that's where things were especially bad. Most of this band of veneer is gone. Now originally it was what they call butt veneer, which is the same stuff they used in here and like back here. It's this weird wavy type of veneer that's really hard to find these days. It kind of looks like burled walnut, but it's not. But that's all I could find a few years ago, so that's why I ordered out burled walnut. This is the stuff that comes from like those big knots, burls you see growing out of tree trunks sometimes. Which looks cool, but it's really not what was on here originally, which is this cool kind of wavy, translucent kind of grain. Well, every now and then I will search on eBay for butt veneer. Not many places carry it now. I don't think it's a standard cut of veneer they make anymore. I believe what it comes from is the root of the tree or near the base or something like that. Well, lo and behold, a few weeks ago somebody was selling some, and just enough to do the bottom of this set and do some other repairs with some to spare. So here is what it looks like. So as you can see, quite a bit different from the burled stuff, but it's kind of got that same look as that. Just use your imagination and pretend that it's been refinished. So this is what I'm going to use to repair the bottom of this set. Recently I also pulled the chassis and took some reference photos for somebody else who does have one of these, and I've since heard about a couple others. In fact, one was auctioned on eBay a while ago, although I don't think they got any bids on it because they were asking for quite a bit of money. So I know for sure there are two others out there, and maybe one other. Still rare though. I think they made 1,100, so there can't be too many lying around. So anyways, I took the chassis out, and when I first got this set I was pretty intimidated by it because I hadn't worked on sets this complex that were this old. But since I've done a few more Filcos of around this vintage, I feel a lot more confident when I looked at it now. It didn't look quite so intimidating, so maybe I'll be getting to this electronically sooner than later. Alright, on with the show. You may recall this tombstone radio from I think 1 or 2 summers ago. I called it a Frankenstein tombstone because it's a crazy conglomeration of probably at least 4 or 5 different radios. I've never been able to identify the cabinet or the chassis. It says C.A. Earl on this escutcheon here, but I know that this is not original, this radio, and this eye-tube was added on later, and I don't know where the knobs came from and so on. Alright, so had not restored it electronically, did refinish the cabinet, but recently a couple updates on this. One, somebody from Video Karma kindly donated some mold making compound called Equinox. It's a 2-part vinyl rubber kind of substance that you mix up, you knead into a ball like Play-Doh, and then you press stuff into it and it makes a nice mold. So this radio, as you may notice, is missing a couple of these inserts here, which I think are made out of something called rep wood, which is an early way of molding parts that kind of look like wood. It's like a mix of sawdust and some kind of resin. So I hope to replicate that and mush some into this mold and cast myself a couple replacements for these two. Also, I had occasion to order some decals from, oh, I don't want to get this wrong. Let's see. Oh, I still got the box here. Let's see. Who did I place an order with? Radio days, good old radio days. I got some decals and I got some grill cloth. So, let's see. First up, this guy. This, I believe, is actually an early type of Filco grill cloth. But from the fragments I found left inside of this radio, that's what they used. So I bought up a piece big enough so I can put this in there. So still may not be working, but at least with the grill cloth and the repaired knobs, it'll look a lot nicer. Continuing on, here is that very, very early model of ET71 I picked up a few weeks ago. I have been slowly sprucing up the cabinet and put new decals on the front control panel, polished up the bezel, got a new CRT mask in place, and so on. I will do a whole dedicated video series on this. More with the grill cloth. If you recall, this Filco, I think it's a 37-611 I restored a while ago. Had a bad refinish job, haven't touched that yet, but since I was ordering grill cloth, I got the appropriate kind for this, because this stuff is just horrible looking. So I am going to put this in there, which is the period correct Filco grill cloth. Down here you may have noticed a couple 16-inch metal CRTs. These are 16 GP4s. One I bought from a fellow Video Karma member, and the other I scavenged out of a beat-up old RCA. Both of these have really good emissions. I hope to use one in an Admiral set and the other in my Zenith Porthole. It's supposed to use a 16 EP4. I'm hoping I can retrofit it to use a 16 GP4, which are much easier to find. Still hard to find, but a lot easier than the impossible to get 16 EP4. Speaking of the Porthole set, I really want to bring it inside, but I have not been able to figure out where the heck to put it until I started to focus on this wall. Behind this bookcase is an outlet, perfectly centered in the wall, be a perfect spot to put a nice big TV. But then, of course, where am I going to put this bookcase? I thought maybe I could cram it into my bedroom and move some other stuff around in there. But then I got to thinking that if I simply rotate this bookcase about 90 degrees and bring it flush to this wall, it'll make kind of a nice room divider, and then I can put the TV next to it. So soon I'm going to try taking all this stuff off of it because it's very heavy, and then try to rotate it and bring that Porthole set inside and finally take a look at it. I've never pulled the chassis or anything like that. Here's the big Porthole set that I'm hoping to bring inside soon. There is the Admiral set that I want to put one of those 16 GP4s inside of. And here are the two Bakelite Admirals that have the same chassis as that set that I'm going to be restoring very, very soon as I clear off that Filco 643 from my workbench. Here's my Filco Predicta Siesta with original stand. When I got this, it did not come with an antenna, it just had a cover plate. Since then I did find one on eBay, so I'll be installing that. But there is another problem with this set, which is this clock mechanism. More specifically, these knobs. These are not the original knobs. A real common problem in clock radios and TVs with clocks from this era is that they would break off. These little metal shafts are supposed to have forks on the end. They would fit into the original knobs. From people cranking on the knobs, those would break off. And often the original knobs would get lost. These are close. I got these out of just some miscellaneous grab bag of knobs I found. But they're not quite the original. Plus, these shafts are broken off, and these knobs, although they will fit on here, you can't actually do anything. They don't grab strong enough to actually rotate the shaft. Well, it turns out that you can get repair kits for the shafts that have new forks on the end. So what you do is you solder. Let's get these settle down in the bag there. So there are two of them. You fit these on the broken off ends there, and you solder them in place. You feed the solder into that hole on the side, and then you've got yourself some new forks on the end. And they also happen to sell fluted clear plastic knobs that are pretty darn close to the original. So I want to take the back off this set, pull this clock out, solder on these replacement forks on the end, and then fit the new knobs on the ends. And then I should be able to actually manipulate these controls properly. Continuing on with the grill cloth, here's my RCA 222, which has a nice hole punched right through it. Yeah, look what I got. Some nice new replica matching grill cloth. Still don't have a speaker though. There is currently one listed on eBay, and he does show photos of the inside, but what do you know, that speaker's a replacement, so I still don't know what the original looks like. However, he does show pictures of the whole cabinet, and I found a few others, so I now have a lot of pictures showing the original legs, which have been cut off of mine. And it turns out that there are two different styles, not of the legs, but of what goes between them. One just has kind of a curved X cross bracing, but one has a little like shelf table that's pretty much a replica of this. It's the same color, light yellowy wood, and it's this oval pattern. So imagine an oval cut out this size and shape, and then flipped around and to make a little shelf underneath the radio. Now that's all well and good, but I don't have any woodworking tools or skills to replicate something like that. But recently I've been talking to a guy who's opening up an antique shop near me who also does some woodworking on the side, and I'm hoping I can get him to make me some replica legs and some kind of shelf for it, because this is one of my favorite radios. Just the look of it I love, so I'm really hoping to get some new legs back on it. One last pack of grill cloth. This I plan on putting on my Filco 38/7 share side, which I've finally started stripping. Just have one side left to do on it. I have already removed that turntable. I am going to patch this in with some new veneer. We'll first plug up the hole, fill it in with some wood filler, whatever it takes, then put on some new veneer, and of course finish stripping this whole thing and then refinish it. I don't think it'll take too much longer. Similarly, here's my Admiral 30A12, which I have also started working on. I've already got the top stripped down, and I repaired the bottom of it. There'll be a dedicated video on this project. If you recall, this was horribly refinished in polyurethane. It should all be a nice dark walnut, even color, not this weird mix of dark and light colors showing so much wood grain, and all the decals are gone, so that'll be a fun project. If you watched the video I just uploaded before this one, you know all about this Admiral set. But below it is my Grinnell 1191, which I'm still working on. I found a place online called Adams Manufacturing Company that makes a ton of different dial belts, including one for this specific radio. So, nice belt. If you go to the Antique Radio Forum and search for, I think, Grinnell 1191 dial belt, somebody shows you how they actually installed this. I will have to dismantle this dial mechanism to some extent to get this on, but I'm very, very happy to have that. Now, as for the cabinet, top's a little rough. Most of the sides are fine. This isn't too bad, just one or two dings. Grill cloth's okay, but as you know, if you watch earlier videos, the bottom foot or so of this cabinet was submerged. Wood's horribly warped, and the veneer is gone from the very bottom. So I've already spent some time straightening out, clamping, gluing, repairing the frame and the underlying plywood. I'll do a whole dedicated video on that too. But the tricky thing was what kind of veneer to put on the bottom here. I found various pictures online. It looked like some had been replaced with something that wasn't original. Some had been refinished, and this was like black. So one I did find that looked to be all original showed that the veneer on the bottom was just the same as what's on the top, and that makes sense. Why wouldn't they? And that's the same as this stuff too. So then the question became, well, what is this? It's got this nice stripy pattern to it, kind of neat looking stuff. Well, I asked around on an antique radio forum, and one guy proposed that this is what they call Australian walnut or Queensland walnut. And again, I hopped onto eBay and searched around, and what do you know, I found some. For both this veneer and the veneer for the 15DX, that butt walnut, I paid like $4 for each shipment. So if you just need a small amount of veneer, eBay is a great place to go. Like this, I just got 2 sheets. And I think it was $3 or $4 because I don't need that much. All I'm doing is this bottom edge here and a little bit of repair around here. Now it'd be nice if the grain orientation was this way. I could just wrap it around, trim it off. But it goes this way, so I will have to cut up a bunch of little segments and try to glue them up as best I can. Now if you're thinking, well, this doesn't look anything like the original. Yeah, well, it will. Or it'll look like a close approximation once I stain it. And well, I was hoping to not refinish this cabinet and maybe just put on new veneer, but if I really want to match the color and do this repair right, I'm going to have to strip this whole thing down. So we'll see once this is stripped what the underlying color of this is really like. But it shouldn't be too tough to get the right kind of walnut stain to make this look like that. Let's see, what else? Well, I guess the last thing I can think of right now is the Filco 643, which I've done a series of videos on. There'll be more updates coming very soon, but I just wanted to point out that I have rigged up that transformer that I was proposing to use for a battery eliminator. I got some dummy loads on here and rectifiers and filter caps and so on, and it seems to be working just fine with the full load and so on. So it doesn't get too hot, it puts out plenty of voltage. I was most concerned about the B+. I need 135 volts or so at 22 milliamps, and this is only rated for 10 milliamps. Well, I put a 22 milliamp load on this, and I'm getting about 300 volts, so no problem there whatsoever. Just a few more quick things. I did order up some decals along with that grill cloth, and I do now have an appropriate decal to go on this cabinet. So the high fidelity will be clipped off. That's not what the original was like, but this Filco font and lettering is. It's a little more gold than it should be. It should be more like an orangey bronze kind of color, but that's the closest you can find these days. Yes, here is my Westinghouse WR8 that everybody keeps asking me about. Sorry, have not gotten to it. The cabinet needs a lot of work, and I really wanted to practice on other sets. There's a lot of veneer damage, missing bits. To do this right, I'm really going to need to practice. Also, I was studying some photos recently of the most original looking one I found, and it's kind of interesting. I knew that the color of the main body was a dark color and that this board here was a light color. And underneath this board on my set, here's the original dark color. But on this one set I saw, the whole main cabinet was not this color. This strip here and the shoulder here and some other areas were a bit darker than the main body. So it's actually like a two-tone dark walnut, a dark walnut, a darker walnut, and then a light color. And I really like that. So if I want to replicate that, I'm going to have to be extra careful to mask off various areas and spray them with different color toner lacquers. So like I said, it's going to be a challenge, so I want to do as much practice as I can on other easier projects first. And then this guy down here, what I've called my Frankenroller. If you recall, I bought this empty Bakelite cabinet, and I separately bought a chassis with a 16-inch picture tube for a totally different model, and I've been trying to get them to work together. Well, I was able to remove the 16-inch picture tube, bend the mounting frame, stick a 17-inch picture tube in there, and stick it in here, and it actually fits quite well. And that pretty nice tight fit all around there. So still have a bit of work to do on this. Like, this is supposed to be a gold color. All the old paint wore off and so on, but the chassis is pretty much working, and just a little bit of cosmetic work, and I think not too much more work to do on this and it'll be done. Oh, and what the hell, one final thing. This set, this is one of the few sets I bought that was supposedly working and restored by somebody else. And it did work for a while, but then it died and made some horrible squealing noise, which usually means something with the horizontal and high voltage stuff. Well, it turns out that somebody on Video Karma is scrapping a chassis that would go in here, so I want to pull this out fairly soon, try to do some quick troubleshooting to figure out what's wrong, and if it's something like the flyback or whatnot, let him know so I can get it from him and hopefully get this set working again. Alright, sorry for talking so fast, but I want to cram a lot into this video. That is all for tonight.